Lynne Kelly, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you joining the episode 19 of the TONMO Octopodcast. You have written an amazing book, and as our audience can imagine, it's about cephalopods. It's called Three Blue Hearts, and it is out soon. But you gave me a copy, and I was able to read it before this, obviously, and I loved it, not surprisingly, but not just because about cephalopods. I mean, I suppose I'd love any book where there was an earnest effort to write a story around cephalopods. But yours is pretty special, in my opinion. I should clarify for the audience, and I'll let you speak to this, but this, if I'm correct, this is really targeted at middle school aged children. But as cephalopod enthusiasts, I think it's definitely for the entire community, regardless of age. But tell me, before we get into the book itself, I'm interested in you as an author, your background, other books that you've written, and then let's get into this new book, which is very exciting.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm so delighted that you enjoyed the story. And this will be my fourth published novel, coming out October 7th. Total coincidence that it's coming out the day before World Octopus Day.
All right.
It was going to be a spring release this year, then bumped to summer, then bumped to fall, and it's just a happy coincidence. That's the day. That's the day that they put it on the calendar. My books so far have had to do with a particular animal. They usually start with something fascinating I learn about an animal, and then I find who's the character who needs to be in this story. So there's going to be a connection in some way. My first novel, Chained, was about a captive elephant and her keeper, who was, I think, a 10-year-old when the story began. Their parallel lives were that they were both sort of captives at this rundown circus. Not physically chained up in the human keeper's case, but he realized, oh, I'm not allowed to leave here like I thought I would. So then his goal will be to protect this elephant and to free both of them for both of their sakes, though it would mean parting ways. And then my 2019 book, Song for a Whale, was inspired by the real life whale. Some of your listeners may be familiar with if they love other ocean life in addition to octopuses. The whale known as the lonely whale or the 52 hertz whale, so called because that's the frequency he sings at, which is much higher than most baleen whales, and he probably cannot communicate with other whales because it's a low sound for us humans. It's like a low note of a tuba, but apparently for a whale that's so screechingly high, nobody can understand you. The character in that is the only deaf kid in school, and when she finds out about this whale, she's thinking, I understand that song. And she sets out to find him, to track him down, and somehow reach out to him and let him know someone out here hears that song you're singing.
Wow, that's great.
The follow-up to that came out last year. That was The Secret Language of Birds, inspired by a Texas Monthly article about whooping cranes nesting in Texas for the first time in a century. They have wandered over from Louisiana or flown over. They're supposed to be a stationary, non-migratory population, but sometimes they do take off. And so some have found farmland in East Texas that they find hospitable and a good place to build a nest and lay eggs. So that marked the first time in a century that we've had hatchlings and eggs anyway in Texas, rather than just ones that migrate and winter on the southern Texas coast. The main character in that was actually the annoying nemesis from Song for a Whale. And I found a lot of people actually liked her, and which I hadn't expected that. But I thought, well, after I heard that a few times, I thought, well, maybe she needs her own story, and I need to get to know this character better and figure out why is she like that? Why does she come across as a know-it-all? Why does she accidentally push someone away when she's desperately trying to be friends? And so I gave her that whooping crane sighting at her summer camp in East Texas. And now this one, this was a little different in that I had the main character Max, in mind for a while, and his overbearing dad. I knew he would be a kid who loves books and animals, and has a dad who values none of that. Totally different personality, though they look alike and have the same name. It took a while before it clicked that an octopus was the right animal for this story. So that came together for a few reasons. I had knocked around different ideas and what would happen here, and then It was, I mean, of course, I've read octopus books like Soul of an Octopus, years ago when it was a new book, and then I had National Geographic cover that had an octopus on it. I was kind of looking at that and thinking, I think the idea was kind of marinating back there for a while. And then I saw after one of the big hurricanes in Florida, I'm sure a lot of people have seen this image, and it was probably on your site, the octopus in a parking garage after a storm. So that image really stuck with me, this out of place octopus after a storm. So that all came together, and I thought, I that's going to be the animal for the story then. Of course, it will fare better than the one in the parking garage. I don't want the story to end with that discovery, but I'm going to put Max on this coastal town in Texas, and this is what he comes across and finds. Oh, as bad as this octopus looks, it is alive, barely, and doesn't know what to do, but he knows he can't walk away. So he's going to find some help for this octopus, and then we'll end up spending the summer helping to take care of her.
First of all, you hit on all the what are the greatest hits of cephalopods. Just you really get into their traits and their behaviors, and you kind of tease that out throughout the story as Max is relating to this octopus and Max's friends that he meets throughout this entire experience, which I just found fantastic in terms of weaving the things that I think the TONMO community loves so much about octopuses. There's so much stuff, and you did a great job of kind of making that foundational to the story. So you learn a lot. If you don't know these things about cephalopods, you learn a lot throughout the book. You also cover chimpanzees as well, which I found interesting, and monkeys I find interesting too. Got a couple of books from another TONMO member. Mark Montague had basically inherited his amazing library, and he had a couple of books on that, which reminded your book reminded me of some of those stories that I had been reading about primates, and so again, just such a I find it really interesting that you conceived Max first, because that was one of my questions for you, because I thought I reflected on it and I thought, well, the lifespan of an octopus, as we know, is short.
Right.
And so I figure that probably creates a great structure for a story. So when you made the decision, so you had Max and his relationship with his father established, and when you settled in, and I know that you're a TONMO member too, by the way, you responded to my newsletter from December, and we started
Yes.
talking about your book, and so here we are, having this podcast about it. I'm curious, like, kind of what led into, like, how did the octopus character shape the story once you kind of brought that together with Max?
Oh, right. So, yeah, as you said, they don't have a long lifespan, and I knew too that that wasn't a problem because this book would take place over a summer, for example. I didn't think of it as
Yeah.
a long, not a long term book, not a years long journey or anything. So, yeah, with her having a short lifespan, it didn't affect the structure of the book so much since I knew it would be a summer book.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, I think it's not too much of a spoiler. We know what happens in the life of an octopus. This is a female octopus. He finds out after he does find a place that can help her. Um, and so I knew that there would be a discovery of eggs and then a discovery of what happens afterward. And of course, my character Max, though he knows a lot about animals, he's at first celebrating, oh yay, you're going to be a mom, you're going to have all these babies to take care of, and then the others who then he notices it's kind of quiet in here.
Yeah.
Nobody's celebrating like I am. So there would be that part of the journey that adds to the emotional impact and the emotional journey of this character.
Yeah.
He did. He is a kid who's had the misfortune of having his most embarrassing mistakes with a large audience. And so one
Yes.
thing he's thinking as he as he finds this octopus. If he doesn't, say it explicitly, I know that he's thinking maybe he's finally in the right place at the right time. This is something he can do that's good. He can actually do something good, do something successful. And then it's got to feel like, in addition to there's some grief there knowing, oh, this octopus isn't just going to be around forever. And so it feels like a bit of a failure to him in a way, even though it's nothing that he did wrong. This is just what happens.
Yeah.
But to him, it feels like, oh no, this thing I was going to do, it's not going like I'd planned, and it's not going to last as long as I thought it would. It's going to be cut short just because of that's how the life of an octopus goes.
Yeah. Wrong Way Max
Yeah.
was he started this summer off in a rough way. This all comes together at this sanctuary of sorts, this clinic with a family who cares for animals that are in need. And this is kind of like the fulcrum for Max and his friends. Um, and that just opens up a world of education. As an author, I'm sure you're like, well, I just unlocked a whole bunch of things that I could bring to my reader along these lines. And you sure did, because it was just such a great read in this respect. And Max is passionate about animals and always has been. And obviously all the people around this environment share that same passion, which is how they all hit it off. So I just loved how that was just a very natural progression to the story. Um, do your other books deal with sanctuaries like that? Well, I guess you mentioned the circus and the elephants and the escape from the circus, if you will. Sanctuary and caring for animals, different thing, of course. But talk to me a little bit about that. Do you personally have experience in those places? Like what inspires you to write about these trades, if you will, for want of a better term?
Yeah, no real experience aside from visiting the occasional sanctuary. My other only other wildlife experience is now and then transporting a few orphan possums to a wildlife rescue or an injured bird, whatever is needed. But I've just always loved animals, and I'm so fascinated by their behavior and thinking about how they're similar to us and how they're different. That was especially a challenge writing about an octopus because it's not as easy to see similarities between them and us, if there are any at all, like there are with a large mammal, perhaps. And when we can see their family groups and how they communicate and how they protect their babies and such, we can compare that more to a human.
Yeah,
So that it comes from that fascination with animals, and I do love to throw in fun facts, weave in fun facts about animals, I should say. But then another challenge too is I can't just throw stuff in there because it's a fun fact. It has to be something important to the story. But what helps too is my characters are also learning about these animals at the time. Like my character Iris in Song for a Whale, she's learning all she can about this animal and about baleen whales in general. So then we as the reader are learning that along with her. And then with Max too, he doesn't know a lot about octopuses when he first finds this one.
right.
He's enjoyed visiting the zoo. He's looked forward to being a junior zookeeper, and that was sidetracked. But he has that experience, but doesn't know enough about an octopus to know how to take care of it, what to expect. Doesn't even know, should I put this back in the ocean? Will it be okay, or is it so weak and missing a leg that it won't be able to swim? Will it become food for something else? And so he's not sure what to do, but he has that compassion and he's not going to walk away. He has to do something to find out what to do. So my experience only is, mainly is that I'm fascinated with animals and I love learning about them. And I think that's a good way to show how we can have empathy. We see that through our characters, how they show empathy and they show compassion for a creature, even one who's about as different from a human as you can be.
Yeah, and there were a number of the facts that you interject and introduce into the story. Um, they do come back throughout throughout the book. A lot of them are deeply tied to humor. It's not often I read and laugh out loud, but there are a few such instances. The first probably being related to the makeshift aquarium that that Max had put together. But also, as they were both there, so Max was very new to cephalopods, clearly, but
Yes.
his friends were had more advanced knowledge, but not total knowledge, and we get to see how
Mhm.
they experience for the first time. Because again, like I said, you touched on all the greatest hits with cephalopods, as we know. The things relating, you mentioned the missing arm, um, the behaviors associated with octopus mothers, um, with senescence, um, with feeding, puzzles, uh, all of this, and a lot more, a lot more. Living in groups. Um, I love the setting, by the way, which is
Oh,
why
thank
I said to you as an aside, I wonder if there's a sequel in the works. do
I
you do
hadn't thought of that, but that's something to think about, or even a another companion novel where another of the side
Yeah,
characters is the star of their own story. We'll see if that might work. I was actually originally the character Ollie and her chimpanzee, that was a separate book. So she was the main character of a different book I was working on. We were seeing that more in real time where the family did have this orphaned chimpanzee they took in with the best of intentions, but then became too close. So they didn't keep that
yeah,
sort of professional distance, wildlife rehabber and animal like they have with others. And then we're seeing that grieving process when they do finally, they find a better place for her. They find a chimpanzee sanctuary for her.
yeah,
But it was probably I don't know how long ago. This book's been in the works a long time. It'll look like I wrote it fast since I did have a book out last year. And now here's this one, but no, it's been many years in the making. But it was a conversation I was having with my agent years ago about each of these books because I was working on Max's book with the octopus and then Ollie's book with the chimpanzee, and we were talking about which one is stronger, which do I need to focus on. Each one wasn't quite there. There was something missing there, and it was after I don't know a long time. In this conversation, my agent finally said, "Wait, maybe these two are friends, and they need to be in the same book." Hadn't thought of that. Never would have thought of that. But yeah, they end up. Yeah, I squished the books together into this one, and probably pieces of other books that I've worked on too. And
yeah,
so she became just a strong side character, and we're seeing the aftermath. So the chimp adoption is part of her backstory, and
right.
the release to a sanctuary is about a month before this story starts.
Yeah.
So
So
my
now,
editor pointed out that I love this character Ollie Mae, but sometimes she's outshining your actual main character. So I don't know if you want to, and I don't want to tone her down, but I mean, that might need to make Max stronger in those scenes. And I told her, well, there's a reason she's so strong and coming across as a main character because she was in her own story. So,
yeah. So now I'm requesting a prequel and a
oh,
sequel.
there you go.
Uh,
Yeah, that could be. And I had like a bunch of letters she'd written to Jane Goodall because she's
yeah.
trying to justify, keeping this chimp. And couldn't I just be a Jane Goodall for one chimp? And this is where she needs to be before
Yes.
coming around to, well, no, being honest and saying, well, no, actually, this is not, we don't have what she needs completely here.
Yeah, so true, and I really appreciate how you touched on that in the book as well. And I have a question for you along these lines. So, as you note, um, chimpanzees, monkeys, they don't make the best pets,
Right.
to say the least.
Yeah.
Especially when they reach, certain maturity, it
Mhm.
becomes very problematic. It's maybe great for some amount of time, but as they kind of go through that puberty type stage, then it's really not a good long
Oh,
term
right. It's like having a
situation.
toddler that outweighs you and is stronger than you are. A
Yeah,
100 pounds of muscle toddler.
right. And so I wanted to get your thoughts about cephalopods and keeping cephalopods as pets. Now, Tonmo has long been, when I started Tonmo, I've told the story many times. I'll keep it short for the audience as they know. I started it as a news magazine. It was meant to be about it's the Octopus News magazine, but I was including squid and all cephalopods, and I wanted to talk about the news, how they show up in the news, and just kind of study, talk about the species themselves and marvel at them without at all ever thinking about them as pets. But as soon as I got traction with Google, and you would put in the term octopus in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, the site really took off, and I discovered how many aquarium keepers there were who were interested in keeping cephalopods and having such a hard time keeping cephalopods. And TONMO became this community where they could collaborate. And on top of that, scientists could collaborate with them, because hobbyists were providing a lot of very valuable insights to the scientific community as well, because octopuses are just so hard to observe in general. And so that all kind of like became an interesting recipe for my website having such longevity. And again, you touch on the difficulty of keeping chimpanzees, but you don't really talk too much about, outside of the fact that they are short-lived, of course. But what are your thoughts about keeping cephalopods in home aquariums and that whole trade?
Yeah, and that's not something I know a lot about. I had to research that, of course. I mean, they do bring up that it's important to keep the lid on
Yeah.
the tank. We've got to weigh it down with something. We have a cover on the filter. It's I set up that they have, this is a wildlife center that on a beach on the Gulf Coast. So they have had an octopus before, but it's been some time. So they do have the astroturf around the top edge to keep the octopus from trying to climb out. So things like that I learned from emailing people who do know more than I do, like people who've worked in a public aquarium, and what are the difficulties of keeping an octopus. One question I had asked about treating the water, and someone I'd emailed about that said, well, since they're on the beach, what we would do in that case is pump in water straight from the Gulf that the octopus came from. So things like that. So that's the best research I do, is talking to people who know more than I do. I do a lot of reading, books, articles, online, watch documentaries, read sites like yours, read the posts like that. So the best research is talking to people who know more than I do, because then I pick up things that I never would have even thought to ask. What do you do with this tank? How do you protect them? They'd have to know when to, shut off the filter, for safety, for sure, weigh down the lid, and it sets up too this sort of feeling of danger or concern, that when someone is pointing out, this is really important that we keep her from escaping. We need to give her things to do so she won't get in trouble, because if they're bored, they will find something to do to cure that boredom. We don't want that. We don't want her taking apart anything. I did ask about what they might put in the tank that could be sort of a cave for her. And Jace Tunnel, who does a lot of beach combing videos with Heart Research Center out of Galveston, helped with that, finding what they might put in there that would be safe and would be cozy, hospitable for the octopus. So asking about what someone needs to do with this tank, because they are difficult to keep. So that's my my only knowledge, is reading about how they are difficult to care for, and then asking people who've had that experience how to care for them. So,
well, your research is excellent, because, and I'm going to hold it up again. I'll probably be showing it throughout probably have it like in the.
And the final copies are in too. That was an advanced copy you got. I just got the hardbacks yesterday, and
that's awesome.
That was fun to see. Unbox those.
So and the reason I take this moment to hold it up is, as you speak about that, I really do recommend it for TONMO members who keep octopuses, because your research is excellent. You really did go into all those aspects that you just touched on and more. And again, I don't want to spoil, so I'll leave it to folks to read. It's a very quick read, but it's also an in-depth story. It runs about 270 pages or so. So it's a great journey. It's a fun escape. The characters are very positive, and it's definitely I guess, I guess feel good works. It's definitely a feel good story, at least in terms of, um, because it is baked with a lot of emotion. When you think of a middle school uh, child, kid reading a story like this, I think you appreciate it. I know I appreciate it even more because I think it really speaks to the youth in a way that's very relatable, and it is infused with very useful and pragmatic octopus facts, which I'm all about the demystification of these creatures, and you do that with these and others. But obviously, the octopus is central to the story. Um, I had fun with the title of the story in my mind, Three Blue Hearts, and I'll talk with you about that offline. But as I was reading the book, I was applying the title, trying to understand how does this all come together, because you could look at this through so many different angles as the story progresses. So again, I just had a great time reading it. I appreciate you sending me the advanced copy so that we could have this interview, which I will get out before this book goes live, and I'll certainly provide links so the community can pick up a copy for themselves, or for it's great timing for the holidays too. Lynn, one of the other questions I had was about the setting. As I said, I thought was just great. We talked a little bit about the sanctuary. You mentioned how the storm kind of brought the octopus into the story. And as we learn, as the story progresses, there is what uh, Ollie and their friend Emmett refer to as downtown.
Mhm.
Speak a little bit about downtown.
Right, and downtown in this case is underwater. I think it's, about 100 yards, offshore, and, so this, town, it's made up of many different Texas coastal towns, like there is a, supposedly haunted Walmart in Galveston, so just different, things that I picked up from different towns and put them in this one, but the setting is largely based on Indianola, and your listeners from Texas are probably familiar with Indianola, but if you're not, it is essentially a ghost town on the southern Texas coast. It was pummeled by two huge hurricanes in the late 1800s, and that's then after that, and a fire. And after that, settlers decided, you know what? I think we're not going to live here anymore. So we're going to go inland, which certainly indigenous people like the Karankawas could have told them, and maybe did. You don't want to live here this time of year. It's time to go inland or farther up the coast. But after those two huge hurricanes, like they had rebuilt the town after the first big one got hit again, and then there was a fire, and then they abandoned the place. So, and it's been abandoned since then. So, but there are remnants of the old courthouse underwater, and maybe some other buildings too. Not much left of them, of course, after all this time. But you can, if you went there and went, I think just snorkeling. I don't think you need to scuba dive. I think you could snorkel and see
Mm-hmm.
remnants of the old courthouse. So I always loved the idea of this old town. Thinking of people walking in and out of these buildings and walking the sidewalks of this town or whatever was there, and now it's completely underwater. So I took that town and thought of it, sort of reimagined it as if people did go back and rebuild and remain there after the devastating hurricanes, rather than abandoning it altogether. It would, it would be one that's not, they wouldn't go through that every year, or I'm sure the town wouldn't have lasted. But I thought of that there were people who went back and rebuilt after that, and here's where they live now, and they know that there are these buildings that are out there in the water, and it makes kind of an artificial coral reef. So it would be a nice place for fish to live. It's a good place to go crabbing, because that's where they might hang out. Plenty of shelter there just from the rubble that was created by this underwater downtown they have.
Yeah, and one of the great things about the experience of reading the book is that we get to see all that through Max's eyes. And Max is
Yeah,
somebody who, is not accustomed to that kind of
right.
environment at all. Is we meet Max in the back of a limousine, right?
Yeah.
So, what a great story. I'm personally very happy you brought it to us, speaking for the cephalopod enthusiast community, and definitely to me. Thank you for the advanced copy. I highly recommend it to all of our community members. And as soon as this is it available on Amazon already?
It will be available wherever you
Pre-order?
buy books. So
Yeah,
any site, any bookstore, if you have a independent bookstore near you, they will have it, or they could order it. Of course, your libraries too, same thing, they will have it, or you can request it there.
yeah,
I'm also doing, so you could pre-order it as of now. It will be
cool.
available for purchase October 7th.
Well,
So that's the release date.
so I'll get this video out before then, and inherent with that, I will put some links to the pre-order um, of the book, so folks can pick up a copy or get it as soon as it's released. I highly
Mhm.
recommend it.
I'm
Um,
also doing a free Zoom Q&A for those who pre-order the book. I can send you a link for that. It's just
yeah,
pre-order the book, at least one copy, and then I have a short Google form. So you would upload the receipt, fill in your name and email, and so I'm just keeping it very simple. And I would email you the link to this Q&A that I'm doing at the end of October. So
excellent,
it's really especially of interest to educators. It's open to anyone, but a classroom could do it, or a book club, or just anyone who's interested in the Q&A. It'll be recorded for later viewing for those who can't attend live, because it's at 11 or noon my time on the 30th. If there are any, let's say because I might have classrooms of deaf children, or they might be in a classroom viewing it with their other classmates, I'll have a sign language interpreter on the screen. It'll be set up as a webinar. So if there are any kids that will be viewing, there's no concern about others, popping up on the video or chiming in on the audio. It'll just be me and the interpreter on the screen. But participants will put questions in the chat for me to answer. So I'll be doing that at the end of October, and I could send you that link to the Google form for those who might be interested in
yeah, please
participating in the
do,
Q&A.
please do. I will share it far and wide as far as my reach. Um, Lynne, thank you so much. I hope you keep writing about cephalopods, because you're really good at it. And
Thank you.
although obviously you cover all animals, which I think is a beautiful thing as well. But we are fortunate that you're the USA Today bestselling author of Song of a Whale, Lynne Kelly. Once again, Three Blue Hearts, a great book for cephalopod enthusiasts. Thank you for bringing it to us. Thank you for joining us on the Octopodcast, and hope to talk again soon.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.